Good Tuesday, everybody. Alongside Eric Kane and Matt Ray, I'm Austin Price. Brent Hubbs will join us in just a few moments. But welcome to the Volquest.com podcast brought to you by our friends at Exterior Home Solutions. Need roofing, siding needs? They can take care of just about anything. That's Exterior Home Solutions. Eric Kane is still in Omaha, Nebraska, where Tennessee picked up a 6-4 win over Stanford, eliminating the Cardinal. And now they're on to a do-or-die game tonight. Can they extend it into another day, Eric Kane?
Yeah, we'll see. Again, it's this team it's built to kind of come out of the losers bracket. And of course, you don't want to be in that situation. You don't want to have your backs up against the wall and everything. But now that you have the arms and you have the guys that can kind of get you through. At the time of this recording, of course, the game's going on right now. But you take a team like LSU, for instance. LSU's got Paul Skeens, and he is incredible. But that's about all they really have. They have Floyd, a solid number 2, but once you get into Thatcher Hurd and so on and so forth, there's not a whole lot of confidence there. Whereas when you look at Tennessee, of course, you have Andrew Lindsey, you have Chase Dolander, you got Drew Beam going tonight. Got that guy right there, and Chase Burns and Seth Halverson and Cannon Sewell and AJ Russell, and the list goes on and on and on. So Tennessee is positioned really well here, kind of coming out of the losers bracket, and it was on full display there on Monday afternoon. Chase Dolander didn't get his best, obviously, but Chase Burns comes in and is just completely dominant, writing his names in the Tennessee record books. And, of course, that 4-run 5th inning and, big hit there from Christian Moore, and Jared Dickey was along for the ride there as well. So it was a really, really nice, impressive win for Tennessee, battling back down 4-0, elimination, just like you were the week before at Southern Miss. But you got the win, you advance on, you move on, and you feel really good and confident with Drew Beam on the bump coming up tonight.
Beam got the lone win over LSU in the series down in Baton Rouge earlier this season. They pitched really, really well. Tennessee's bats were alive and well in that game against LSU's number 3. If they end up playing in LSU again, as you pointed out, when we recorded this, the game was still ongoing. I do think that it's the best case scenario for Tennessee because LSU not as deep as a pitching staff, as you pointed out, as Wake Forest. Either way, Tennessee's going to need Beam later tonight to have another long performance, in my opinion, because if you're going to come out of this losers bracket, you still got to hold up well for the following 2 games where you're going to have to win back-to-back games against the team that's come out of the winners bracket. If you can get to that point, I think Beam's got to give them 6 to 7 coming up tonight, and we'll see after that what they do.
Yeah, no doubt. And you look at LSU again, just using them as an example. Skeens is incredible, but their team ERA, it's like in the 4s there, and that's not horrible, but that's 40th in the country. Whereas Tennessee's got top 5 team ERA, and so again positioned well, but. You're exactly right. You are in the losers bracket, meaning you have to play more games. And, you win, you stay alive, you keep advancing, you play the next day, And so what Chase Burns is able to do on Monday, just incredible. Of course, his stuff was electric, and he's given the team such a lift. It's so funny, too, because it was a demotion, right? I mean, he was getting beat up in the starting role in SEC play. And then you demote him to the bullpen, and he's one of the most electric arms in all the country in this role. And he saved Tennessee, going on 6+ innings, not allowing a run, only 2 hits, and that allowed Tennessee to win that game, obviously. But you didn't have to bring back Seth Halverson, bring back Cannon Sewell or anybody else. So those guys can be there to pick Beam up tonight. But as you pointed out, you love best case scenario for Beam to go 6 innings, 7 innings, and again, help them for the next day. So you're going to need good Drew Beam, and he's been arguably one of Tennessee's best pitchers here in the last month. There's been a lot of people saying that, Beam, it was the Charlotte coach at the end of the, or the Southern Miss coach, excuse me, at the end of that super regional, saying that, Drew Beam might have better stuff than Chase Dolander and Andrew Lindsey, and those guys are pretty good as well. So you need Drew Beam tonight. You need QB1. That whole mantra, backs up against the wall. And I think that's where this team thrives the most. And certainly they showed it on Monday afternoon.
Tennessee's been known for the long ball the last several years, especially with Lindsey Nelson being such a hitter-friendly park for home runs. But they won that game yesterday playing small ball, singling them to death. I mean, The rally that got it tied at 4 was just single, shortened swings, and kind of basically zeroing in on the off speed stuff and hammering it. And Tennessee kind of made some adjustments at the plate, started to find their groove a little bit. Do we expect that to continue on against whoever they play?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's obviously a way. This team continues to prove that they can win games in so many different ways. And it was our group chat Monday afternoon, and Grant Ramey said, I just love the fact that this team that's hit 1 billion home runs the last 2 years, tallied 12 hits, 11 singles in a win in the College World Series. And it just goes to show you, again, just the growth and development of this team. You go and look at that 5th inning, you're exactly right. Zane Denton leads off with a single. You got a strikeout from Scott, and then Stark singles to left field. Great from the bottom of the order right there. Acuña, Maui singles to left field. That bases are loaded. Inslee gets that fly ball, and it's just deep enough with that guy with a cannon in left field. Obviously, you already saw that on display earlier in the game. But just single, sack fly. And then you get the big 2-run, Dickey has a single, and then Moore has the big 2-run single. And so, they're just proving that they can win games in different ways. And, liking the approach. I thought Quinn Matthews, of course, he threw 156 pitches last week. He was out there in, game 2 with a 5-run lead, 150 plus pitches. It was a little bit ridiculous at that point, but I just thought he looked tired. Tennessee was hitting him around a little bit there in the first couple innings, and then they got to him.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. Tennessee had multiple base runners on base the first couple of innings, and he was able to kind of escape, but I mean, you look at when he got knocked out of the game, got pulled out of the game, he had basically given up 9 hits and less than 5 innings of work. I mean, like they were, I mean, they may not have been like, home runs, but they were putting the bat on the ball in the barrel and really, I thought, I guess probably one of their better team hitting performances without having to go yard all season long, I thought. I mean, and it was just a string of, hits over and over and over again, and they were hard hit balls.
Yeah, they were. And I mean, I'd have to go look this up, but I feel safe in saying, those 11 singles or whatever it was, I mean, that's easily the most they've had in a single game this year. And then you just look at the lineup card, the box score after the game, and you see Maui's got 3 hits. That's great to see. I thought, for as much as he strikes out, but I thought he has really put together some solid at-bats through 2 games of the World Series. Inslee's been great. He didn't have a hit on Monday, but he had that big sac fly, 3 hits from Jared Dickey, 2 hits from Blake Burke, moving up to the 6th spot, which was big. 2 hits again from Zane Denton, who's been so clutch. And so, up and down that order, Tennessee really was just getting good at bat, good barrel on ball, and sending it up the middle, sending it the other way, and that's good. It's so hard to count out the Tennessee baseball team because down by 4 runs at Southern Miss in game 2, brink of elimination, come back. Same situation here in this game, and even against LSU. There late in that contest when you finally got Paul Skeens out of the ball game, you brought the tying run to the plate, and Tennessee was right there. So that's why Tennessee is so dangerous. It's never really one guy playing hero in that lineup. It's just kind of like who wants to be the hero that day. And then you couple that with all the arms, and that's why Tennessee is in Omaha. And that's why Tennessee is one of the most dangerous teams despite already having a loss.
Yeah, I mean, they really are. I mean, they're built if a team was built to come out of the loser's bracket, it is Tennessee. I mean, and Stanford's a team that came out of the losers bracket multiple times. I mean, they had faced elimination, I think 5 times this postseason, and they were 5-0 going into yesterday's game before they were eliminated. Tennessee at worst now finishes 6th or 5th, depending on I guess who loses first. Either way, this is a Tennessee baseball team that I think still has a little bit left in it. Again, I think the game later tonight's a game that is very winnable for Tennessee. At the same time, it's getting past the team that comes out of the winner's bracket and has to be beaten twice to make that championship series. That's going to be the real tough point.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough any way you want to spin it. It's why, Brent said it countless times, so have I. I think it's why just getting to Omaha is so tough. But, I mean, winning the whole thing, it's incredible. Regional setup to where if you lose a game, it's really hard to win that regional, and that's what Tennessee's playing in right now. It's a mini regional, and there's some great teams that Tennessee's paired with, right? I mean, LSU, Stanford, you just got done playing. Wake Forest might be the best team in the country, and it's going to be a challenge. Again, it's about who has the most arms, who can give you the most flexibility, and who can give you options. And Tennessee has that. But Drew Beam, as you pointed out, he's got to give you a great start tonight. Would love it if he can go 6-7 innings. You're in the ball game right there, because again, you have everybody available, and that's great. But if you do win, you got to do the same thing tomorrow, and then the same thing the next day. And that's just to get out of this little regional play into the championship series. So it's going to be tough. And Wake Forest, again, that game's going on, right now. Wake Forest is so good. They're great, the lineup. But the difference in Wake Forest and LSU and Wake Forest and Stanford, Wake Forest has some arms too. So they are positioned a little bit like Tennessee is as well. Therefore, if you play in LSU, I think it's a huge win for the University of Tennessee. And, this team's hungry too. This team's excited. They're riding some momentum right now, and deservingly so. You're in Omaha. You're feeling good about yourselves. You knew when you lost on Saturday what it would take to come back and stay alive, and they did that on Monday. And so they're going to be amped up. They're ready to roll, and we'll see what we have tonight. But the win yesterday snapped a 6-game losing streak in Omaha. They did it all the way back to 2001. And, Chase Burns, again, the first reliever to throw 6+ innings in a College World Series game, without allowing a run since 1997. Just incredible. Those, strikeouts that he had, I think, let's see, I don't have it pulled up. I think it was 9. Yeah. Tied for the most in a College World Series game with Todd Helton. Again, we're seeing elite performances right now. And this is stuff, if you're a Tennessee baseball fan, you're going to talk about for a long, long time. And so I'm glad they won a game. I think they can win tonight for sure. And I'll see what happens.
It's Beamer on the bump later tonight, and it's Caner in Omaha with all the coverage at Volquest.com. Let's take a break. Let's hear from our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions. And when we come back, we'll switch gears. Matt Ray will finally get engaged in this broadcast, and we'll talk recruiting on the other side.
Your roof, it's the most important protection against nature for your home or your business. That's why I trust the experts at Exterior Home Solutions.
A big thanks, as always, to our friends Exterior Home Solutions for allowing us to do this every single Tuesday and Thursday at Volquest.com. We welcome Brent Hubbs, and we welcome Brent Hubbs into the podcast. Matt Ray is going to talk in this portion of the podcast. We got a full crew now. Eric Kane and Austin Price. Guys, let's go ahead and start.
First of all, it's not Matt's fault he didn't get to talk. It's not my fault I'm late. I'm out here in Jed Clampett Green Acres land. Apparently the rain has created Wi-Fi issues out here in Corrigan. So that's Petticoat Junction or whatever we're doing here that's prevented the Wi-Fi from working today. Matt, is your mic working? Are they going to let you talk now?
Yeah, my mic's working. I didn't talk, but I did enough thinking for the both of us, so we're good. We're good to go in that second.
Matt will agree, and just I'm not just for the Volquesters. I think I pick on Eric. This isn't pick on Eric. There's a real shot that they vote to end the filibuster after Kane's last 4-minute retort at the end of segment 1. So he filibustered pretty hard there.
Had a goal in mind, man. We're waiting on our leader. I was trying to stall a little bit. Talking Tennessee baseball, I can do it.
Going.
All right. Hey, let's talk about Boo Carter. Tennessee gets a commitments, star in-state athlete. Been after him for a long, long time. Safety, nickelback, but he can play a little bit all over. But he jumps in the boat, makes his announcements to Tennessee on Saturday night. AP, a one that Tennessee needed to have, and finally he jumps in.
Yeah, and a big get. Boo is one that's a catalyst for other recruits. Doesn't mean that everybody's going to go, oh, Boo's there, and I'm just going to fall in line. That's not how it works. But other kids gravitate towards him. Again, his name is Boo, and there's a certain cachet, certain swag that he carries himself with. And I think kids are like, ooh, this kid's name is Boo. This is awesome. And then they see kind of how he maneuvers and operates and stuff. And kids love it. And, so I think that, he has an impact. Again, it doesn't mean kids are just going to just fall in line and commit because Boo did. But at the same time, there is a certain magnetism about him with other players. that gets him interested in Tennessee. And so he'll be here this weekend for an OV, Matt, and having him around Mike Matthews, having him around Amari Jefferson, having him around all the other players that are in town, I think it's a big deal.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've touched on it a little bit, but Mike Matthews and Boo Carter, they go way back to the AAU basketball scene when they were coming up. A little bit of competitive friendship, if you will. They kind of decided they were geared the same way, and that sparked a friendship. And I just think Boo Carter is that guy that's not afraid to say, "Hey, what are you waiting on? Come to Tennessee." And I think that's something this class needs. And he's the guy that's going to do that. He's so well known because he's traveled. He's played 7-on-7 with everybody. He talks to everybody. He has a good time. Like AP said, his name's Boo. So everybody knows him. And then he's not hurting in the real name department either. Boo is the nickname. Orlando is the first name. So, I mean, he's got two of the best names that you could have out there. But just a guy that I think can do a lot of different things for Tennessee in the secondary. And I think a lot of it comes down to what he can do in a short area. You put him in a box as a nickel cornerback or a safety, within those short areas, he does so much. And he's just really tough. There was a camp about this time last year where I think everybody thought he was going to come up and just play offense strictly. He did play some offense, but he played defense, and he absolutely just shut guys down all camp long. So that kind of led to Tennessee pursuing him on the defensive side of the football. But for Tennessee, it's a big win to get Boo Carter in the class.
His quote to you, as you called me and said, there's a lot of guys that say that school X is getting a dog. He had a breed of dog.
He had a breed of dog. Yeah.
I mean, that's that. I mean, that means he's thought about it. I mean, like that means to me, like. Again, like and I think it's a good comparison because he does play with a competitiveness that is just intense, and Lockwilders are intense.
Matt, you were talking about Boo Carter being a guy that says, "Hey, what are you doing? Let's go. Come to Tennessee. Like, what are you waiting on?" Edwin Spillman, could be on the receiving end of that text message or that phone call.
Well, it was from the 40-40 club. He FaceTimed him when
he was from the 40-40 club. He FaceTimed. Yeah.
There you go. Well, plans are already in motion. Edwin Spillman back on campus this week. Matt, how did it go, and how much closer is Tennessee before he finally makes a decision?
Yeah, I think Edwin Spillman's continued to take things in stride in his recruitment, but again, Tennessee's been in this thing for the long haul, and what we've said for a little while, it's hard to envision Edwin Spillman somewhere other than Tennessee. I think he continues to connect really well with these guys, and I think we see him, make a decision sometime after everything wraps up here in June, probably early July. And it's still, again, anything can happen in recruiting, but it's hard to see Edwin Spillman somewhere other than Tennessee.
Austin, you and I talked about this a little bit on Sunday. I think he's a little bit caught up in the fact that he believes everybody assumes he's going to Tennessee. Yep. How much is that slowing things down? How much is that a concern to Tennessee? Do they have to recruit him differently? But because he's got a little bit of that mindset, he clearly likes Ohio State, right? Now, he's got all the variables that make the most sense to Tennessee. But he's always had a bit of an affinity for Ohio State, going back to before he ever really started getting recruited. How much does Tennessee have to make sure that Edwin Spillman is being recruited as Edwin Spillman and not one of the Spillman brothers?
I think that's the biggest hang up here. I've said that. If you're Josh Heupel, like, you don't like it when everybody just assumes you're going to run back to Oklahoma if that job comes open. So, Edwin Spillman doesn't just like it that everybody just assumes he's going to Tennessee because older brother Nathan's there. And so, I think, you got to recruit Edwin for Edwin. I think Tennessee's done that. I think he and Brian Jean-Marie are really, really tight. I think we're nearing the end of this thing. And, I think Matt's right. I think this is he's going to pray about it. He's going to go on a little bit of a trip with some buddies. And after that, I think he'll be ready to announce.
All right, guys. So it was Saturday morning. I was at McGee Tyson Airport, waiting on my tin can that was 12, 13 rows to take me to Chicago to get on my connector and over here to Omaha. I'm waiting on this flight to come in from Chicago, seeing everybody get off the plane, and Inston's in a 6'6", 333 pounder wearing Chicago Bears stuff. It was obviously Darnell Wright. Makes a whole lot of sense because his new home is Chicago, coming in this weekend for whatever, but also spent some time with a Tennessee target in Daniel Calhoun. Daniel Calhoun, AP this weekend. How did Tennessee fare there, and how much of an influence was having Darnell Wright on campus?
Well, I think Tennessee did a really nice job, having some former players in town. But Darnell Wright was one of them, and for Daniel Calhoun being able to talk to a guy who got drafted in the top 10 is a big deal. And I thought Tennessee showed really well with Daniel Calhoun this weekend. And I think Georgia and Alabama were ahead of the Vols before this past weekend. I would no longer say that's the case. Again, right now, I'm kind of, I feel like Tennessee's in a pretty good spot there leaving the weekend. But, going to go to Texas this weekend. They're a team you have to watch out for. The question is are they okay, going that far away from home, or would he rather stay in this part of the country to play in the league? He's going to be playing in the league regardless because Texas is coming into it. But, I'm really interested to kind of see what his thoughts are leaving that Texas visit with one visit to go.
Yeah. I don't feel like maybe I'm wrong here, Matt, and Austin, jump in there. You guys know this better than me. I mean, I don't want to say the Texas visit's a wasted visit because he's been there before, but I mean, this feels like it's Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee kind of as the three to me. Am I wrong in feeling that way? That's kind of my takeaway. Maybe it's because he's been to those three places so many times compared to some of the others.
Well, I mean, I don't think you can discount Texas. Okay. I think that the distance plays a factor. The question is how much of a factor does it play? And so, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but at the same time, I don't think it's just a token visit. I think Texas has a legitimate shot. Are they behind the other teams? I do believe that's the case. But, I said Tennessee was behind Georgia and Alabama before last weekend, and, they've made a push here. And so, again, like the biggest thing for Calhoun is like, I know he's, on our, we have him listed as the interior offensive lineman. I think that's what he is. I mean, I think he's a mauler guard. Could he play right tackle? Maybe, but I think he is just a specimen, especially once he gets in a nutrition program and a weight program. I mean, he's, 350 plus pounds. And once he trims off some of that baby fat and gets in a real weight program, I think will look even better.
Well, I think we've kind of touched on it a couple of times. Like, why does Daniel Calhoun, keep coming back to Tennessee's campus? And the more you talk to people and the more you get to learn a little bit about Daniel Calhoun and his family, they're pretty diligent in the process. They're really taking this thing in stride. Alabama and Georgia have been in a really good spot, as we've alluded to, for a while. Tennessee made a good push this weekend. But I'm right there with Austin. I think, you can't discount Texas in this one. Are they behind? Yeah, they're behind going into the weekend. But just like, Tennessee, they're going to get their shot. And we'll see where things are for Daniel Calhoun. I do think, Eric, back to your first point, that it was a pretty smart play by Tennessee to connect him with Darnell Wright because there's some similarities there. Two highly ranked guys that are physical specimens. But both needed, when Darnell got here, needed to get in a little bit better shape, had some things to clean up. He'll be the first guy to tell you that. Daniel Calhoun will be the first guy to tell you that he needs to trim up. He needs to get in a little bit better shape. So I think, to not only be able to connect with a guy that was just a top 10 pick, but also a guy that already has gone through what you are self-aware that you're going to go through when you get to a college program is, a good talking point during the weekend.
Matt, let's stay with you, man. Can't mention one without the other when talking about the defensive line. Williams, Nwaneri, 5-star, number one rated defensive player per on 3 in the class. And of course, Kamarion Franklin, both those guys on campus, both those guys spending time with Rodney Garner. How did they fare?
I'll defer to AP for Cam Franklin because I didn't talk to him, but did talk to Williams Nwaneri, and he's a tough read. But, I mean, to say the least, to say the least. He's a tough read, but still kind of feels like where things were. Tennessee had a good weekend with Williams Nwaneri. I think he had productive conversations with Mike Eckler and the Tennessee coaching staff. He really liked what they broke down for him from a football standpoint. The interesting thing to me with Williams Nwaneri in talking to him was what was your favorite parts of the trip? What did you enjoy? None of it was the flashy stuff. None of it was the photo shoot, hanging out in Neyland Stadium. Hey, what did you enjoy? I enjoyed seeing how Tennessee could use me. He liked that they talked to him about the Leo position, the fact that he could play interior in certain situations, the fact that he can do so many different things for this defense. I think that is something that stood out to him. And I don't know where his conversations have been during other visits, but I think Tennessee really did well on the football side of things this weekend with him. Now, I asked him a couple of different times when I talked to him, do you really think this thing's going to September? He seemed pretty adamant that it would. He really wants to take that trip to Oregon. Now, does that get moved up? Possibly. Does he need to see Oregon again to make a decision? Once things go dead in July, how does he, kind of work through everything there? I still think there's a chance he could decide before September, but I've told AP this. I've talked to other folks that feel the same way. If it goes to September with Williams Nwaneri, I think all bets are off. If he decides in July, I think Tennessee has a really good chance.
Yeah, I can't dispute that. I will say this: Nwaneri, as Matt said, is a tough read. Like I think he's the kind of guy that is going to have the same expression on his wedding day, when his first kid's you're never going to. He can have the time of his life. You're never going to know it. You're never going to be able to read it. As far as Cam Franklin, a little more smiles, but those guys are similar personality-wise, which is why, Nwaneri told Matt he liked hanging out with Cam Franklin. Very similar personalities, kind of low-key, reserved. I think Tennessee did well with Cam Franklin this weekend. Again, when does he do something? He's talking about going to Auburn in September for a visit. The longer this plays out, to me, it's harder to maintain momentum. Right now, I think Tennessee has the momentum with Cam. But what does that momentum look like in late July, in late August, in mid-September? And, I think that's kind of one of those things where, I think Ole Miss is a factor. I think Miami's a factor. And I think Auburn's a factor. I think those are the four teams. And, Ole Miss is going to take a swing because of the in-state school right down the road. Miami is Miami. And Auburn is Auburn. And so, I think it's one of those things, like, as Matt said with Williams, Cam cancel that LSU visit. To me, that's interesting. Was that Cam canceling the visit, or was that LSU saying, this thing's going to go a while? We're better to shoot our shot in season than shoot it right now. That's my real question. And that's one question I'm going to see if I can figure out over the next couple of days was this a Cam decision or an LSU decision? Because if it's a Cam decision, then I think that's a really good sign for the Vols.
Well, and then, we talk about Daniel Calhoun, and it's like, we've talked about him, and it's like he keeps coming back to Tennessee. He keeps coming back to Tennessee. For me, with Cam Franklin, Miami's that dark horse. He keeps getting back down to Miami slowly. It's like, why is it? He doesn't feel like a Miami kid. But I think they're in it more so than people think. And because of that, I think this could go on a little longer, like AP said. Now, if it's Cam canceling the LSU visit, I think that's very interesting.
Brent, a couple weeks ago in Nashville at the On3 NIL event series, AP had a chance to catch up with Caleb Beasley, longtime commit for Tennessee. And he talked about how he and Jake Merklinger, both those guys were on campus this past weekend, but he talked about how those two guys were kind of the leaders in the group, right? But then you had Caleb Beasley going over here, going on this visit and signing up for this visit and all that. But this weekend he said, hey, I'm done. This is home. This is it. And he shut down his recruitment. How big is that for Tennessee, for Caleb Beasley, and for this class to kind of move forward?
Well, I think we all felt like Caleb Beasley was going to end up at Tennessee, even if he took other visits. I think the bigger thing, though, Austin, was if he's going to be a guy who carries some weight.
Yeah, I agree, Hubbard. I know where you're going there. Like, if you carry weight and you are one that is saying, I want to be the face of the defensive side, how much does it kind of look like, I don't know about that for other recruits. If you're out visiting Oklahoma and visiting Notre Dame, cancel the Oklahoma visit. Says he's not going to take the visit to Notre Dame anymore. And I know what they're saying over at the Notre Dame site that, they'll keep swinging and blah, blah, blah. Again, the kid grew up a Vol fan. The dad is a big Vol fan. Like part of this is just the process of him, fielding phone calls and stuff. I've never viewed anybody as a real threat with Caleb Beasley because I think Caleb Beasley wants to be an Orange. Everybody around him wants him an Orange, and I think he'll be an Orange.
Yeah, but to answer your question, Eric, I think it's big because now when he calls and texts other kids and starts talking about Tennessee, there's none of this discussion. Well, why are you taking a visit elsewhere if you're all about Tennessee? So I think this gives him a chance to be a better peer recruiter for Tennessee, along with Boo Carter, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. But in state, it's going to carry more weight with Edwin Spillman now from Caleb Beasley, because if Caleb Beasley is truly locked in and completely done, then he's truly recruiting you to Tennessee. So I do think that it's a big deal for Tennessee, but because he is shutting it down, and I think that gives his voice a lot more pull with other recruits, or at least a lot more influence with other recruits.
In my opinion, I think Caleb Beasley's heard for months, dating back to January, February, not really long after he committed there, that he's the top defensive back target on the board for Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman's been the guy that's continued to prioritize him. He, by the school there at Lipscomb, as he could be, they continue to work him really hard. So I think on the peer recruiting side of things, not that Tennessee's going head to head with Notre Dame necessarily for a lot of people, but I think for him, when he shuts it down and he says, hey, look, I've been told for months, I was the top defensive back target for Notre Dame. There's all the opportunity in the world there to play for a defensive-minded head coach, but I want to stay here. I want to play for Tennessee. I think it just carries that much more weight.
Obviously, only a limited amount of time on the podcast. We can talk recruiting for a lot longer, but AP, Matt, any of the other highlights, things from this weekend that are worth mentioning right now? Then obviously a big-time weekend coming up, even a bigger group to wrap up official visits for the month of June.
Well, the Tennessee leaves the weekend in a great spot for Braylon Staley, a wide receiver from Aiken, South Carolina. They leave the weekend in a great spot for Jordan Burns, linebacker from Pace down in Atlanta. This weekend, they'll host linebacker Tylen Singleton, who comes to town. I like where Tennessee's at there. I know a few national people, still love LSU, but I really kind of like where Tennessee's at entering the weekend. And Matt, all eyes are going to be on Mike Matthews and Amari Jefferson, the two wide receivers. And then does Bennett Warren make it in? Tennessee's got to find an offensive tackle. That's a point of contention for me. If the offensive line, or especially the offensive tackle recruiting, it's just not been great. And they've got to find some tackle bodies. And right now the numbers are dwindling, and they've got to figure out who it is. Is it Bennett Warren? I guess we'll find out if he makes it in this weekend, if Tennessee can do anything there.
Yeah, I think Bennett Warren, you have to try to find a way to get him here this weekend. He's important right now. I know he's not a name that's been thrown up a lot, but he's important. Mike Matthews and Amari Jefferson, they're going to get, they're going to be the talk of the weekend. I think you look elsewhere, William Satterwhite and Ronan O'Connell are both here. Tennessee's trying to continue to show well in both of those recruitments, right up there. Trying to close those out and coming out of the month of June. Quintavious Johnson set to be here, a guy that Tennessee seems to like a pretty good bit on the defensive line, as they're going to continue to try to show well there. Clemson recently entered the mix. Georgia's still a factor there. So another big-time battle, but it's another massive, massive weekend for Tennessee on the recruiting front.
And Braylon Russell, the big back from Arkansas, rolls to town this weekend. He's coming off that Arkansas visit. They're trying to get him back in the boat. He was once committed to the Hogs. The fact he's still coming on that visit tells me Tennessee's got a real shot to be the team that Braylon Russell picks on July 14th, which is his birthday, which is the day he will pull the trigger. But, again, you already have Peyton Lewis. You see him right there in this class. They would love to add a big back like Braylon Russell, who's got some twitch to him in this class. And, the Volquest.com podcast After Dark, Eric Kane's already got the lights changing down there. This is some neat stuff.
Hey,
I think somebody forgot to pay the power bill here at the Holiday Inn Express. The lights just went off.
Hey, let me ask. I know we're running out of time here, but since I got on late and I haven't had a chance to talk, I do want to ask a couple of questions here. Matt and Austin, the Johnson kid. I mean, where you're looking at where Tennessee is at on the defensive line. I know we're talking about, Kamarion Franklin. I know we're talking about Williams. But some of these other guys are coming off the board, right? Like how much more important is a guy like Johnson this weekend than he was 3 or 4 weeks ago in terms of Tennessee's defensive line recruiting, Matt?
Yeah, I think you hit it right there. Some of these other guys are coming off the board. Amaris Williams was supposed to be here this weekend, committed to Florida during that visit last weekend. So I think, again, Quintavious Johnson's that much more important this weekend. As Tennessee continues to work through the cycle there, he's a guy that, he's been kind of quiet there at Mays High School. Most of the kids that come out of Mays High School are pretty quiet, not very active on social media. Don't really get into the visit hype and talk a lot after visits. But I mean, look at the measurables there. 6'5", 255. He moves and does some things well. Kind of reminds me of a Tyree Weathersby at this stage. You can see the motor, you can see the potential. There's need for refinement, but there's plenty of room to grow, and the ceiling's really high. So I think this is an important visit for him this weekend, and an important, opportunity for Tennessee to continue to show well with him.
Huge last couple weekends here for Tennessee in terms of recruiting as they try to wrap up the this class of 2024, at least these official visits. Of course, it'll go on until signing day in December. And you can find it all the coverage over at Volquest.com. Nobody does it better than Austin Price and Matt Ray. For our friends over at Exterior Home Solutions, a big thank you for allowing us to do this coverage. It's presented always by Exterior Home Solution. That's the Volquest podcast and Mailbag podcast. And you can give them a free call today for an estimate at 865-524-5888, 865-524-5888, or visit them online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. We will continue the coverage for as long as Tennessee is here in Omaha. We know that Drew Beam's going to get the ball tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern time, and another win or go home game. Tennessee's, in my opinion, Tennessee is very much positioned a lot better than some other teams in these types of games, as they've already proven it a couple times this postseason. We'll have all that coverage over at VolQuest.com. For Brent Hubbs, Austin Price, Matt Ray, I'm Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys for listening to us here on a Tuesday morning.